X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is the weekly podcast about X-Men where we rank every X-Men story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. And Adam?
Yes.
We've got such a big episode, don't we?
We have got the Battle Royale of Battle Royales today in 3 different generations.
We do. We have just eons and eons of comic book history coming together for a fight between the largest media property in Marvel history and also, I guess, the Avengers, who had everyone else.
Yeah.
I say Marvel history. I do mean actually in the past. Obviously, in the present, the X-Men are a top 10 film franchise in the world going up against number 1 with a bullet.
Yeah, I don't know if there's really much competition on that part, but I think in comic book land, X-Men is definitely a more powerful force than the Avengers generally. Am I wrong there from a sales perspective?
Historically, so this is actually interesting to put in perspective as we get into our first story. But historically, the Avengers were they were kind of big in the 60s. They were bigger than the X-Men. But once the Claremont stuff really got going, the X-Men took off and the Avengers were Marvel's B characters. They were not the big guns. It wasn't Hulk. It wasn't Spider-Man. It wasn't even Silver Surfer or the Fantastic Four, who traditionally did better in mass media stuff. And they sure weren't the X-Men. And what's interesting is a couple of things happened. One in 2001, 2002, when the Ultimates came out, that really refreshed the Avengers for a new generation. Mm-hmm. But then more so when, not Grant Morrison, he never wrote Avengers. When Brian Michael Bendis did his Avengers Disassembled and New Avengers run, where he said, hey, you know how the Justice League is all of the best characters from DC? We need to make the Avengers that. And he put Wolverine and Spider-Man on the team, and it works super well.
Yeah, it does.
So that combined, even that going in, the Avengers were still not as big as the X-Men. They were just an A-list team now. And that changed when Avengers, the movie, came out. The same summer as our first story on this list. And that story is...
AVX, requested by...
Amir Allen. So first off, before we jump into all of this Avengers fighting X-Men content, I want to thank Amir because he went over to patreon.com/XavierFiles. He pitched in a couple of bucks every month, and he got an entire episode handcrafted around a suggestion of his choice. And I think this may be the most number of issues we've both read for a single story on this list. And
I think so. We did that by accident
for an episode. Oh my gosh, we made so many bad choices. So hey, you remember when we did IVX and I said that it was going to take a little bit to get through it?
Yes.
Because boy.
Oh, well, this is twice as long. So
this is more than twice as long. So this was written by committee.
Well, that's fascinating. Is how many writers, how many artists on this thing? It's
so
nuts.
Not counting the Infinite comics, which are part of it on Unlimited, and we just read with it. There are 5 writers: Brian Michael Bendis, Matt Fraction, Jason Aaron, Ed Brubaker, and Jonathan Hickman, all of which are pretty good at comic books.
Yeah, and they're kind of all taking turns scripting here, if I'm reading the credits correctly. Each one is
they all rotated,
featured. Yeah. Okay. So that's an idea.
And we've got 3 different artists on these 12 issues. That would be John Romita Jr., Olivier Coipel, and Adam Kubert. You also have Frank Chow doing the 0 issue.
Yes. Which you could probably skip. It's not essential.
Here's the thing. Let's start with that 0 issue, because the 0 issue is about 2 characters, Scarlet Witch and Hope Summers. Only one of which is actually kind of an important, like a really important central character in this story. The other one is a plot device.
You could argue that both of them are plot devices.
I think one of them
story.
I think Hope gets a heck of a lot more characterization than Wanda does in this entire series.
Sure. Wanda's basically used as a weapon in this series. Like she's garlic to the vampires in this series, you know?
Right.
But
we should talk about what this book is.
Leading up to this, we've got this promise that Hope is the mutant messiah, right?
Right.
And Cyclops has formed Utopia and is training Hope super hard to become the whatever, right?
Yeah, like, whatever she's going to be, he's going to help her out.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. And then what happens?
Well, what happens is the Phoenix Force shows up on the Avengers radar. And they say, yes, that's the noise they make because somehow they've been missing since 1980 when Jean Grey first appeared with it. Which, by the way, guys, look, let's start with the fact that a lot of this book doesn't actually work with canon, and we're just going to have to move forward with it. But the Phoenix Force has been like a going concern in X-Men comics well after Dark Phoenix Saga, and in some pretty prominent places. Everyone's forgetting that in this book.
Well, no one even acknowledges it at all. It's basically as if Jean Grey was the only host and that it just dropped off the map and we never saw it again until this moment in 2012, which is utterly ridiculous. So let's skip this for a second because we should probably just give a brief description of what happens here.
Fine. Anyway, the Avengers say, well, let's see. No, the Avengers don't say anything. Captain America goes to his good buddy Wolverine and says, Wolverine, you're an X-Man type, and we know this fire chicken is coming. You know what it's coming for? And he says, yeah, it's coming for Hope. Duh. Everyone knows that. She has red hair. So he says, well, then we need to do something about that. So Captain America goes to the sovereign mutant nation of Utopia, whose sovereignty is frankly questionable, to say the least. But, you know,
a little questionable.
He goes and confronts Cyclops and says, hey, bud, we need to kidnap this child. And Cyclops says, no, the Phoenix is coming, obviously. So we're going to let this thing that did corrupt and kill my wife, we're going to let this thing take over Hope because that's going to fix everything, regardless of the fact that that's not how the Phoenix works, and that's not how the Phoenix has ever actually worked. But let's take everyone's logic aside because, again, everyone's in the wrong here. Anyway, there's a big fight. And then blah, blah, blah. Hope runs away. The X-Men try and find her. They end up on the moon. Tony Stark makes this big robot to try and stop the Phoenix, and it doesn't work, and it diverts the Phoenix from Hope and instead sends it into the Phoenix 5 of Cyclops, Emma Frost, Namor, and the Rasputin siblings.
PENIS. Spell it with me, everybody. The acronym of all time. All right. Sorry, I had to go there.
Emma, Namor, Illyana, Scott. Oh, guys.
Yeah.
Guys. I love it.
So we get Phoenix 5. So all 5 of them are corrupted. They remake the world into essentially a utopia, and then each of them begins
Cyclops
to be
declares himself God King of the world. We all need to remember that point when we start talking about Cyclops and his correctitude. He does go to the UN and say, I rule the world now, don't fight, which is an objectively good thing to do. Don't fight. But maybe his methods were flawed and bad. Because like Barack Obama shows up and he says, yeah, guys, Utopia's good, but he did just take over the world like a supervillain. Like we are all aware of what happened. Anyway.
And thus lots of fighting and trying to... Oh, wait, we forgot the Kung Fu angle. Because
Hope goes to become an Iron Fist. Which is just out of the blue. That
is the weirdest part of the story. Is that she has to go to Kunlun to become an Iron Fist to defeat Scott.
It's something that Bendis was playing up in his new Avengers tie-ins to this, but it doesn't make much sense, and it doesn't work because the Iron Fist stuff doesn't really matter, because they find out that, oh, Wanda's chaos magic is the water gun to the Phoenix Five's fire that kind of throws them off in this Pokemon triangle of power moves, and ends up saying, oh, well, we should train with Wanda, maybe she can be our secret weapon. Meanwhile, Namor goes a little nuts with power, floods Wakanda, and then he gets all of his Phoenix powers taken away from him. And then, anyway, all the Phoenix powers go to Scott by the end of this thing. And then he kills Professor Xavier, who decides to show up. And then he gets stopped. But then, by the way, all new mutants appeared everywhere. And I think we spent like 6 minutes trying to explain the plot of this very long event.
Yeah, this is a year's worth of content crammed into 6 months, and we're not even going to touch all of the crossover stuff that happens, because there's, all of these individual battle issues that accompanied this event.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we're not talking about them in this, but Avengers Vs X-Men, which is the fights book, is actually super fun.
There's some cool stuff in there. But this is a wild scope. All right, let's just rewind for just a quick moment about Rachel. It is incredibly frustrating that they do not mention even once that Rachel hosted the Phoenix for what, 10 years in continuity. And not only that, but Rachel appears briefly in this story only to be used as sort of like a Cerebro to try and find where Hope is. And that's her only scene. It's incredibly annoying.
I like to imagine that Rachel heard from Scott saying, hey, the Avengers think that the Phoenix is going to destroy the world. And she said, no, that Firebird was my friend for a while. Mom did some weird stuff with it and it didn't go well. But me and Big P over there, we cool.
Everyone's like, we don't know what to do about the Phoenix. Like, give Rachel a call. Let's talk to Rachel and see if she's got any advice for us.
Not even just Rachel. Jean in New X-Men was fully Phoenix powered. And she was like, yeah, we're good, guys. I got it. I got this.
Yeah. So the concept
Phoenix has showed up in 2 big summer events.
Yeah.
And they like the 10 years before this in Phoenix Endsong and Warsong. Like,
you do have to ignore those things. You do have to ignore those things. And you also have to really kind of grit your teeth at the idea that Cyclops is obsessed with the idea that the Phoenix is going to lead to this huge rebirth and that it links up with Hope's mutant messiah. I think we talked about this in the Phoenix episode, but the idea of the Phoenix coming back and back and back and back is a trope that I don't particularly enjoy very much. And it feels very tired here. However, I will say that I have a very soft spot for the Phoenix Five. And I think that it's a really fun idea, and it may not be executed perfectly, but that element of the story I really like.
I like the Phoenix Five in the Uncanny X-Men tie-ins. I like the Phoenix Five in the Avengers Academy tie-ins. I like the Phoenix Five in a lot of stuff. I don't particularly like them here.
Okay.
The thing about it is, there's a larger thing about everyone with the Cyclops was right movement and all this stuff. And I want to say, I'm saying this literally wearing the Jay and Miles Cyclops Resist t-shirt that I have. So don't get it twisted. I think Revolutionary Cyclops is a pretty neat idea, and it has some of my favorite comics from it. Sure. But Cyclops in this very thing says, oh no, I was wrong several different times. He openly admits, I made some bad choices. And then calling himself God King of the world, probably not the best plan.
No. I mean, the idea that, I guess the central conflict that comes out of this is that Charles is dead. And whether Scott was in control of himself, whether he was corrupted. But just from the instant that they become the Phoenix Five, they immediately jump into remake the world God mode. I realize there's still a conflict there. You know what I mean? And whether he's guilty or not is an interesting premise for future stories.
Mhm.
But right off the bat, they're villains,
Yeah.
despite anything good they might be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about the death of Charles Xavier here for a second,
Sure.
because I am of the opinion of that's super unearned. It
Mm-hmm.
He shows up for like 4 or 5 pages during issue 6 or 7. And
Yep.
then he shows up in 11 to be like, hey, Scott, you gotta stop, man. I love you. You gotta chill. This whole being the overlord of the world, Doctor Doom thing you got going on is not a great look for mutants. Are you dumb, kid? Let me help you. And then he says, you're not my real dad, and kills him.
Yep. You're not my dad.
It's not earned. And I'm okay with Charles Xavier being dead, but it's not earned and it feels tacked on. And we know that it's like a thing that happened late in the game because Age of Ultron, which came out very soon after this, that Brian Michael Bendis, one of the writers on this book, was writing, had to redraw and have issues redrawn and things rescripted to take Charles Xavier out of that story because Charles Xavier died super late in the game. It feels tacked on because it really was.
Well, he's not part of the story.
Right.
If you read the rest of the crossover, he pops in and like you said, it's a cameo appearance. So it's still a very I think this is a good opportunity to talk about the art a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I I am blown away by Coipel's issues on this. They are absolutely stunning. They are gorgeous. I think it's really cool when you're reading the first half of the story how we switch from Romita to Coipel when they become the Phoenix Five between issues. JR is doing a very sort of blocky, his normal blocky style.
His stuff doesn't
feels,
work as well for me. The
it feels a little
stuff doesn't hit.
it feels a little rushed. I will say though that the weakest component of this is Kubert feels extra rushed in getting
Really,
his issues done.
really, because I think the Kubert Spider-Man issue might be my favorite like single issue out of all these. I think Coipel is probably a better. Like I like Coipel as an artist more, but I think Kubert does a real good job on the stuff he's given. So I think that's an interesting take on it.
Well, let me clarify. Kubert is obviously, I think he's doing an amazing job with the breakdowns. His page layouts are great. When I say that he seems rushed, if you go back to like his the first couple issues, let's say, of Ultimate X-Men, he renders his artwork, I think, a little bit more intensely than what you're seeing here. There's page count here that he's got to do in what seems to be a short period of time. And it doesn't seem to have JR is the same way. It doesn't seem to have the same polish and finish on it. Maybe partially who's doing inking with them. And especially in number 12, we have, I think there's some extra. It's not just Kubert, right? Don't we have some other artists in on this book on the 12th issue?
I would have to pull that up. I just have the
Okay,
trade
so
information
it's
in
Kubert
front of me.
pencils, but we have 3 different inkers coming in. So,
That's not shocking.
There's some variety there, and it doesn't feel like Adam Kubert on certain pages, depending on who's inking him. And we've seen this happen in other crossover events where there's a publishing schedule and they just can't fit it all in with these amazing artists. So I think that is a weakness for the story itself. Because you read, and this is how I want to come back to that Death of Xavier scene. It's so beautiful. The artwork in that issue is absolutely gorgeous, frameable stuff. But I agree that as a story beat, it doesn't really work. So maybe we should start thinking about this like as a whole. I mean,
we
what
have
do you
to
think about this? Yeah,
I'm mixed. So this was one of the stories that when I was getting into comics, I picked up the trade and I devoured it. It's an immensely fun and readable thing. I would put it real similar to something like a Civil War or a Batman Hush. They are stories that if you're a deep, long-time reader with a encyclopedic knowledge of the characters and the continuity and comic book tropes, you're going to get real frustrated real quick with those books. That being said, Avengers vs. X-Men, Civil War, Batman Hush, those are books I would hand to someone who's like, man, I'm real interested in superheroes, because it's going to give you what you think you want out of things. When you first read it, if it's one of your early things, you're going to really enjoy it because it is a blockbuster. It's got so much going on. It's got all of your faves. It's got some interesting plot points, well developed or not. But it falls apart under deeper critical examination.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of encapsulating it. I too read this at a time when I was getting back into comics, and I loved it. But now that we've been doing the show, and I'm a little bit deeper into the fandom, you know, there's a little bit when you hold this up to the light and scrutinize it, you know, it has less of its blockbuster appeal. But you're absolutely right. Like, I feel if you gave this to a fan, there's a reason that there are people out there that are pining for like this to be a movie. Maybe not this would be
such a bad movie.
Like, oh, it'd be a terrible movie.
So bad.
But yeah, but the idea of it, you know what I mean? Like, if I pick this up in a Barnes and Noble and I haven't read these characters in a while, and I'm like, whoa, look at these teams and they're kicking the crap out of each other. Like, there's a fun element of that to the book that does work.
Absolutely.
So we have a couple other big crossovers on our list. At 61, we have House of M. Trying to think of what other
I'm going to throw this out here because I think it's very comparable. Number 69, nice on our list, is our namesake, Battle of the Atom.
Battle of the Atom, yeah.
Is this better or worse than Battle of the Atom?
That, I think, is a very tough question. Battle of the Atom is fun. It has really cool components like the Future Brotherhood. Artistically, it's very uneven. And story-wise, it kind of treads water a little bit in places. I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due. AVX is throwing a lot of stuff at the wall. Not all of it sticks, but there is some really cool stuff happening here that, especially in the Koi Pell issues, is stunning, at least to look at. But, you know, it feels more like a popcorn fluff movie that you don't have to, you know, I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say here. It ain't Tolstoy. No. You know what I mean?
One thing that I found interesting while I was going through it is AVX is objectively a very long comic, like run. It's 12 issues plus of just the core story.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it feels slow in some places. Like, it takes too long to get to the Phoenix 5. It really does, because the first half of this is a lot slower, a lot less interesting. But then all the elements that they use for the culmination of the story aren't well developed. The Charles Xavier we already mentioned is not well developed. The Scarlet Witch stuff with her helping bring all the mutants back, that's not well developed at all. Scarlet Witch maybe appears in a quarter of these issues. And then the other big thing I'd say isn't well developed is the Kunlun stuff. Like, why are they going to this hidden Kung Fu city? I don't know, because they are. There's weird asides. There's weird things like they spend 4 pages recruiting Hulk in issue 11 for him just not to do anything. Like, that's true. It's little things that are just odd about this story, so it feels both rushed and like there's not enough space to develop a lot of stuff. So I think it's probably, to me, AVX is more uneven than Battle of the Atom.
I think that's fair. I mean, if you have a central architect, I think that's another thing about having the multiple writers write this as a committee. You know, I'll use another example that I think is a fair comparison is when Hickman did the Infinity series. You know, that had a large sort of intense scope to it, but it still felt more focused because it was just him. It was his vision. You know, this definitely feels like Bendis is probably like, yo, guys, we got to get Kunlun in there, you know, and everybody at the table's like, oh, okay, well, guess we'll do what Bendis
Fraction
says.
and Brubaker were writing some good Kunlun stuff at that time. I know it's fun to pick on BMB there, but he was not the one writing the Immortal Iron Fist series.
All right, I apologize. It was not in the room for the committee, but you can get that sense that like maybe some of the things that are thrown in here are there's nothing. There seems to be a little less editorial oversight than maybe should have been on this in terms of
Right.
streamlining it. Okay, so if we're gonna say it's not as good as Battle of the Atom, how low are you looking?
Do you like this?
Because
Do you
I
like
don't.
this better or worse than Phoenix Resurrection?
Yes, I like this better than Phoenix
Okay,
Resurrection.
I think that's fair.
I think this is rereadable in doses that like, and it's very memorable too. It has some really cool
We've
stuff
talked for
going
nearly
on.
a half hour about it at this point, and we could keep going. Like, this could be the entire episode. I could do a deep dive on AVX.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm sure we'll revisit it at times when the crossover stuff gets requested. But I think, just maybe even for purposes of time, I think I would put it above Wolverine Snicked. I like Wolverine Snicked. I think it's a really fun concept and it's solidly executed, but this is a landmark miniseries. It may be a bit of a mess, but I think it has enough value and I think it has enough consequence in terms of where the book goes that it means something. You were going to go lower.
I was going to go lower. Here's what I'll counter with.
Yeah.
On just a couple spots down is the Astonishing Tales Mojo World, and I think this is better than that.
Okay.
So between those are Amazing X-Men Quest for Nightcrawler, that Wolverine and the X-Men story where Kitty gets pregnant with a bunch of brood, and that time that the X-Men fought Dracula the first time.
I was going to say I think it's at least better than those three.
I think here's what I'd say. Both of these stories have moments of Wolverine walking around in the snow. One of them has Wolverine walking around in the snow in a dead bear's carcass, following a trail of beer, which is kind of funny.
I like that.
One of them has Wolverine and Nightcrawler giving a really big bro hug in the snow, and I think that, to me, that moment stands out more to me, even in an uneven story like Quest for Nightcrawler, than some of the big moments in AVX.
All right. Well, I can give you that. I mean, that is Jason Aaron sort of like putting a hat on top of his Wolverine and the X-Men run, right? He's trying to tie some of that stuff together. So maybe this is our new 72.
I think it is. I think after darn near a half hour, we should say that AVX is the number 72 on our list.
Well, we needed at least half that time just to explain the damn thing. It's so long.
Oh my gosh. It's so long, guys.
But you know what? This isn't the only time that the X-Men have gone up against the Avengers. They have gone up against other times.
You're joking. Heroes fighting heroes? I don't believe you, man.
So the second thing that we have on our list today is the X-Men versus the Avengers, not the Avengers versus the X-Men, which is the 80s.
Right, the 1987 miniseries.
Yeah, Roger Stern, Silvestri. This is interesting. So different than what we were just talking about.
Yeah, this is weird. How much do you want to bet that they just couldn't fit the words Avengers versus the X-Men versus the Soviet super soldiers on the title? Because that's really what this story is.
I commented on that because somebody had asked when we were live tweeting our reads about this, why Crimson Dynamo was in it. And really, that's what the series should be called, because it's not X-Men versus Avengers. It's X-Men and the Avengers versus the Soviet super soldiers, who are just as big a player in this book.
Right. So the Soviets are mad that one part of Asteroid M is falling down into the atmosphere. And then also Magneto did some stuff to Russia. He did.
Sure.
That one's on him.
Yeah.
He destroyed a town with a volcano and sank a submarine. Not sure how he did that first one, but he sure did.
Well, the short end of this is that he's wanted for war crimes that he is guilty of. So we
that's an objective
crime.
Yeah.
So we have three teams that for various reasons are just trying to find Magneto. And that's what the first three issues of this are about. The fourth one goes haywire and completely off the rails for editorial reasons, which we can get into.
Right.
But
because that one, Tom DeFalco, Jim Shooter write the fourth issue, and Keith Pollard does pencils, though At the time, they needed someone for Uncanny, and that's where Silvestri kind of left. So he probably wasn't going to be doing the 4th issue regardless. But
just in terms of lineups, we've got a really fun. This is sort of, Outback era X-Men, or I guess a little pre-Outback. We're sort of right in that area.
This is post Fall of the Mutants.
Yes. We have an interesting Avengers lineup here, which is Cap, She-Hulk, Photon, Captain Marvel, Doctor
Druid.
Dr. Druid.
Thor.
Who am I missing? Yeah, Thor with a beard.
In Black Knight.
And Black Knight.
Here's the thing about this Avengers lineup. It's got 2 of my least favorite Avengers in it. I don't care about Black Knight at all. When they did the 50 states thing for US Avengers, and Black Knight was the Avenger they chose for the heart of it all, the state of Ohio, I was furious and said, I'm not buying that. They chose the worst one.
Well, that cover stunt didn't make any damn sense anyway. Captain Britain was in it. Sunspot was in it.
Okay, hold on. Because the Captain Britain one was actually a retailer exclusive. It was a retailer exclusive variant that some retailer in the UK commissioned for it. And it's such a good joke that they did keep it in there.
But didn't they put Sunspot in like Missouri or something? I feel like
I don't remember where everyone went. Look, not all of the X-Men are from all the Avengers are from all 50 states. They did try as hard as they could, I think. But it failed, and I would have rather had just like, hey, Brian Michael Bendis, he's from Ohio. He can be our Avengers representative.
Do a photo cover.
That would have been so good.
I would like that. That'd be great. So the MacGuffin here is that Magneto is looking for this stolen tech, which quick fun note is that these pieces of Asteroid M are falling because Warlock destroyed Asteroid M in his descent to Earth many years ago.
In the middle of freaking Demon Bear, yes.
So we don't know until the 4th issue what that's supposed to do. So there's a little bit of an interesting thing here where Roger Stern was, told to pack his bags on the 4th issue because his whole idea was that he wanted Magneto to go back to being a Silver Age-ish villain. So I don't know if what happens in issue 4 is what he originally intended.
No, it is specifically not.
I think it's pretty much not, because the 4th issue is not good.
Well, I'm actually shocked that it took him that long to get that pitch canceled, because Claremont was using Magneto at the time. And
if you look at interviews with Stern, he says that was the pitch for the book, and he said it was the condition for him to write this series. So I'm not sure where the mix-up came from, but it goes completely off the rails in the 4th issue. Involves another trial of Magneto, which is resolved in a very bizarre way. Where he's brainwashing this one person instead of the entire world with his magic helmet. Oy.
Yeah, it's weird. Magneto goes back to Silver Age magnets can do anything power.
Oh, sure.
Which just doesn't make sense. And they try and make some moral conundrum of, well, maybe Magneto will turn into a villain because we don't know if he really used his powers on the Judge or not, or if he was really innocent or not. By the way, Magneto's definitely guilty of some war crimes, guys. Not even a question.
Yeah.
And also their logic is
he wasn't present for the Geneva Convention. So he's not liable for his crimes. Isn't that what they say? That he just wasn't there. He wasn't there when we wrote them.
There's some very bad stuff. And frankly, the fact that his first trial hinged on the fact that he got turned into a baby once, I feel like you could call a mistrial on that based on the fact that, no, that doesn't hold any actual legal precedence or weight.
No, it doesn't. So if you're a Silvestri fan, if you like 80s X-Men and 80s Avengers, definitely check this out for at least the first 3 issues. And then if you want to see some editorial jumping in that doesn't really do it any favors, you can check out issue number 4.
Yeah, this goes off the rails real dang hard. Issue 4 is just the first 3 issues to me They're fine. They aren't bad comics, but they aren't Chris Claremont X-Men comics.
No,
They've
this
got-
feels like an annual,
Yeah,
you know, like
that's exactly what it feels like. That's exactly what it feels like. It feels like a big annual where it's going to tell some inconsequential story, but bring in some faces you probably wouldn't see otherwise.
yeah. And that can be fun, but the end result here is not fun because of the meddling that goes on in the writing or something.
Well, here's the thing. I kind of think I'm glad the meddling happened, because if this was the story to turn Magneto back into a antagonist, it would be deeply dissatisfying.
Oh, sure. Sure. Absolutely.
But it does have a bear man. Can we talk about Ursa Major, the mutant who turns into a bear?
Oh, yes, the superstar of this this miniseries.
It's not only just because he turns into a bear. He gets some very good lines, like when he talks to his anti-mutant teammate and says, "Friggin' dude, we're all mutants. What are you talking about with this bigoted stuff?" And it's funny because he's a grizzly bear saying that.
He also has a moment where they're stuck. They're trying to escape a battleship, and he can't fit through. I don't know if it's a doorway or a vent or something. So he has to switch back to his human form. But of course, Ursa Major runs around
Because he's a
naked
bear man, yes.
as a bear. So She-Hulk, yeah, and She-Hulk is behind him trying to lift him out.
I love She-Hulk.
It's a really
I think I mentioned
scene.
off air, She-Hulk is one of my favorite like B-level Avengers. She's up there. I think She-Hulk's great. She's real fun.
She's great. Great Avenger, great Fantastic Four member.
Captain America is also a lot better in this story than he is in AVX. Because this story goes out of its way to say, hey, by the way, Captain America is the best guy. Like, he's probably not going to cause an international incident with a volatile people who have frankly been unfairly treated over the years. And you know, maybe he's not a bigoted dude. Maybe he's okay.
Well, and it also has scenes where the teams listen to each other, which is fascinating, where people actually stop fighting and go, oh, wait, we should listen to what they're saying. Maybe we don't need to punch each other. And we can figure this out in another way, which is always fun.
Not always the most interesting thing in picture books about men with laser eyes and magic hammers. But even paying lip service to talking things through, kind of, it's better. You should do it. You should just, like, if you got beef, you know, talk to people about it, work it out.
So we agree that this goes completely off the rails.
It falls off a cliff.
Yeah, after 3 issues that are, you know, they're fine, and they're definitely indicative of a time period. But you know, as a whole, this is kind of a mess. So why don't we start with, I'm assuming you don't like this better than AVX, or am I wrong?
I don't like this better than AVX.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some other things that are comparable to this. What
just falls apart?
Yeah.
It's better than IVX.
Okay. All right. Well, that gives us
a lot of room.
Bottom of a well here. I like this. How about Deadly Genesis? Do you like this better than Deadly Genesis?
Yeah, I think I like this better than Deadly Genesis.
All right.
I think this is maybe about on the same level as that Quanon story from X-Men Volume 2 at 111 right now on our list.
Yeah, I can get behind that. All right. Would you put it above your beloved Evolution number 9 House Party issue?
I mean, I think I might.
Okay.
I think I led with Quanon thing to get us there. Yes, I manipulated the list.
All right. Is this better than Gold Team Goes to Find Mikhail Into the Void?
That's an interesting one, because this one is 3 okay issues and 1 bad issue. Yeah. Where Into the Void is like 3 fine issues. Like, I think the highs of X-Men versus Avengers are better than Into the Void, but I think the average might actually be lower.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good place for it on the list. Is below, right below Into the Void. What do you think?
I think that is perfectly fine to be our new
Great.
110 on the list. X-Men versus Avengers. Yes, it's a different thing.
Yeah, they switched it, so now we get to have them fight again, but we're going to go back in time even more. So let's head to the Silver Age. What issues are these?
So these are the first real Avengers versus X-Men times. This is X-Men 43, 44, 45, and Avengers 53, which caps off this story. It was written by Roy the Boy, Gary Frederick, and Gary Frederick again, and then Roy the Boy again in Avengers, with pencils by George Tuska, Werner Roth, Don Heck, and John Buscema.
Yeah. This is some wild stuff here, man.
So this is, you know how we said Magneto may have committed some war crimes? This is super Silver Age Magneto. This is, so can I tell you the first interesting thing? If you look at the X-Men issues at the time, how they are marketed. Because X-Men's in small letters, but the characters are in big letters. It says, this is a Magneto, or this is Angel, or this is Cyclops. X-Men wasn't a brand at the time, so having the X-Men fight the Avengers is an interesting choice.
Yeah, well, we're coming right off of Xavier faking his death for the first time,
and then transmitting his psychic powers to Jean, because that's how it works.
Yes, via video screen, right?
Something of the sort. Yes.
Yeah. And then there's some Quicksilver drama. Toad is playing like full on Igor to Magneto's Dr. Frankenstein.
Yes.
And wow, he is just a wide-eyed, like bug-eyed weirdo.
Toad is odd in this book. But yeah, Quicksilver and Wanda at this time had long been with the Avengers and then recently left because Wanda got hurt in the line of duty. And Magneto said, well, I can heal your sister. So Quicksilver goes to be an anti-villain again, leaves the Avengers. At this time, the Avengers... Because can we talk about the Avengers lineup that shows up for a second?
It's also an interesting one that I was not expecting at this time period.
When you think of the Avengers, I think the first three faces to pop up are Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man.
Yes. None of them.
We have Wasp, Goliath, Hawkeye, and going by this at the time because of political stuff, Panther.
Yes. Oh, it's a strange lineup.
It is a strange lineup. But yeah, anyway, the X-Men go to fight Magneto. They get captured. And then Angel escapes and has a weird one-off escapade with Red Raven, a Golden Age character.
Yeah. He finds an island of winged people, essentially. So there's a whole separate issue where he has a little mini adventure. Then we get back into it, and then, we get Cyclops versus Quicksilver. The Avengers show up at the end of that, and some fighting ensues, and it looks...
The X-Men get mind controlled by Magneto.
Yeah, and then it pretty much looks at the end of this like Magneto has been dashed upon some rocks, and we'll never see him again.
Yeah, it's weird. There's specifically a line, just to tell you the difference between Silver Age Magneto and the Magneto you have in your mind. There is a line where Cyclops says, I will not believe that Magneto would do anything benevolent for fellow mutants. Which is kind of Magneto's whole deal.
That's a great scene, because, if you put it in contrast with what Cyclops ends up doing with Utopia, Quicksilver is basically talking about creating a utopia for mutants, its own sovereign nation. It's a great scene to read with modern continuity.
It's weird to see how the tables had turned.
Yes. But absolutely bizarre Silver Age stuff. Cyclops has ear holes on his head sock.
It is weird.
It's weird. It just looks odd. This whole Red Raven thing
It
that
never comes
Angel
up
goes
again,
off
by the
on,
way.
the
Like,
lineup
at
of
least
the
in X-Men,
Avengers.
never gets brought up again. Angel just is like, oh, I was screwing around and I ended up on this island, and this guy tells me his whole backstory about these bird people that when he was 21, he realized, oh, wait, I don't have wings. Maybe I'm not from here. Which is, I know that's a trope. That's a trope that only the movie Elf ever played straight. But that was a very silly movie, and Will Ferrell's allowed to be like, wait, I'm not an elf? No, Red Raven. You gotta know you don't have wings. It's everyone's whole deal here.
It's strange. Though Angel does get a really quality line. It's lucky my parents just sent my monthly allowance, which allows them passage on a
Silver
cargo
Age
ship.
Comet
I love
X-Men
that panel. It's great.
Isn't always good. It's rarely good, actually. It's very entertaining.
The Avengers issue also features the and I had to I had forgotten this band existed, but the reference to Strawberry Alarm Clock, which it's great. Hawkeye says we ain't Strawberry Alarm Clock, and I was like, wait, what is that again?
It doesn't land as well with the millennials.
No, didn't you see? There's a weird Charlie Brown thing in there too, right?
Yeah, Cyclops insults someone's calling them Charlie Brown, I think, but it doesn't work very well, and it doesn't make any sense because I do know what a Charlie Brown is. He is a football kicking boy who's very bad at it. Charlie Brown is the Cyclops of the Peanuts. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Who's Lucy?
Emma Frost.
Emma.
Yeah, there you go. She's a therapist. She's very mean. She probably has a crush on him. It's a whole thing.
Is Wolverine Pigpen?
This is a good point.
We could go all night on this one.
Well, Nightcrawler is Linus, I feel like.
Well, that's nice. I like that.
I think Wolverine is Snoopy.
He
goes off on his own adventures a lot of times in past wars. He's the breakout character. He's a little bit mischievous. I like that better. Which I think
Gold Star.
I think that makes Jubilee
Woodstock?
Yes, I think that makes Jubilee Woodstock.
All right, so this Silver Age story is oh boy, it's the messiest of the three.
It just ends, right? Like the Avengers story, because the next X-Men thing just cuts to the X-Men doing whatever they're doing next. The Avengers story doesn't actually resolve the X-Men part besides, hey, Magneto fell into the water.
Yes, Magneto fell into some rocks. Good night. And that's about it. So, I think this is absolutely missable. I think the question that I got from this was, why do people like Silver Age Magneto? Why would you want to bring him back to this frenzied version of the character that is just, I think, awful?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not
when you
good.
hear Roger Stern say, we want Magneto to be back to Silver Age Magneto. Why? Like, that doesn't sound like a great idea at all.
And we talked about this in the Magneto episode. I am so there for Magneto being an antagonist. But I like, for all of its flaws, I like Mutant Genesis Magneto, where he is still recognizably the Claremont character, but his goals are opposing the X-Men versus Doctor Doom Magneto.
Well, it's not. It's even worse than Doctor Doom. I mean, it's not. It's like just a blah ha ha at the sky. Like doesn't seem to be much rhyme or reason behind even what he's doing. So I gotta say, I mean, in terms of ranking this, I'm looking super low on the list because I do not want to revisit this.
I don't either. The one thing I do think we need to at least touch on in all the X-Men stories is that they all have backups. And the backup doesn't actually finish in these issues because there's one backup that's, hey, here's Cyclops' mutant powers. Aren't they neat? Which is pretty funny.
Yeah, they're like, we'll figure out Ruby Quartz somewhere.
Okay,
sometime
the editor's
soon.
notes are great because Stan does say, hey, we don't know why Ruby Quartz does. Nerds, stop bothering me. I wrote it just like once because I was like, what's a color? Red. That's the color of his visor already. Perfect. What's a rock?
A rock.
Quartz. Perfect. Great. Let's go. Jack, let's do this thing. And then there's another note where Quicksilver is flying in one issue. And Stan says, as seen in Avengers question mark.
Yeah, I think he got this power.
I don't know, man. It's too late. We can't fix it. Just come on, guys. Just go read your stupid punch books.
I would go so far as to say that in terms of like the sloppiness of this and how like all over the map it is, that I'm actually looking around the Shatterstar origin story a little bit.
I can dig
like,
that. I
don't know how low. I don't know how low you're looking, but it's just a mess. You know, like it doesn't seem to know what the heck it's doing. You can understand why this book is not a bestseller.
I'm trying to see where our lowest ranked Silver Age story. Yeah, okay, I Lucifer's better than this, and that's at 130.
Oh, yeah. I liked I Lucifer way better than that. I mean, that kind of also goes off the rails, but it's fun. This is not
X-Factor,
this is not fun.
The first arc of X-Factor is probably better.
Yeah, definitely. Crimson Dawn has, I mean, at least it's a story that begins and ends and has hot pink electric spiders.
I think you actually targeted a very good part, because I don't know if this is worse than Eve of Destruction. Eve of Destruction is very not good.
I was just looking at that.
And weird, I keep forgetting that Eve of Destruction introduces like 2 or 3 new X-Men characters who no one cares about.
Yeah, I would say that Eve of Destruction is more objectionable than this. Like, this is harmless if just never visitable again. Like, I don't want to revisit this again. But Eve of Destruction, like, I find the introduction of all those new characters who never get used again, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's a really
right above
trope.
that is the Shatterstar saga. And I don't know how I feel. Here's the thing, though. I care more about that era of X-Force than I do Silver Age X-Men. So I am more lenient about an objectively bad story like the Shatterstar saga. These are both objectively bad. Like, you probably shouldn't read either of them, but I think Shatterstar saga, it's it's
a
bad
more
in
interesting
ways, where this is like everything generic about the Silver Age stuff. Like the Avengers versus X-Men parts of this are so boring. The best part of these is the like that Iceman backup, and that's not good. It's just like, oh, this is kind of neat.
Yeah. So that's our new 141.
I think it is. Oofta. I did not imagine. I wasn't expecting that AVX was actually going to be the top ranked story in this episode, but I can't argue with our logic here.
No, it's this one's no good.
Yeah, Hachi-Machi.
All right.
I think that closes out an extra long episode of Battle of the Atom. If you like this episode, then go ahead and thank Amir Allen, who went over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. He tossed in $2 and he got this whole episode. He even got bonus stuff. So you know what? Sometimes your dollar goes even farther. So thank you so much. If you want to be like him, go do that. If you can't or don't want to or anything, go on to like iTunes, give us a 5-star review, or even better than that, you got a friend who likes X-Men? Maybe say, hey, dude, check out these 2 dum-dums talk about AVX for a half hour. It's possibly more interesting than several issues in AVX.
Ooh, bold.
I said both, possibly, and no, this is better than like AVX 3 or 3 and 4.
I could buy that.
Hey, and then if you want to get a hold of me, go over to wow. Well, what is my Twitter account? At Xavier Files or XavierFiles.com. And that's where all my stuff at. Hey, Adam, where can people find you online?
Guys, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. We've got new pages coming through December of Bish and Jubes 4, Attack on the Mansion. So check those out every X-Men Monday. If you want a copy of issue number 3, you can go to adamrec.bigcartel.com. $1 gets you an issue, printed and mailed to your house. And just a quick tease, because we're starting to get into October, I think, with this episode, or maybe we're getting close to October, but
yeah, guys, we're recording in the past, like pretty hard.
Yes.
No, this comes out the first day of October.
Okay, so I'm not sure when this is going to be released, and I can't talk about it too much, but I just want to give a quick tease that Retcon X, who we have featured on the show before, who makes music about X-Men, and I have been collaborating on something. So I believe sometime in October that's going to drop. So I'm very excited for that music to get shared with you. So I just thought I'd throw that little teaser out there.
I feel sufficiently teased. So next week, we keep on this, 3 out of 4 week Phoenix train a running with jumping into some stories about Jean Grey, but maybe a Jean Grey who's a little bit younger, a little bit less sure of her place in the world than we have come to know and love. But until then, this has been Battle of the Atom, and we hope you survived the experience.
Get it!